Hello everyone and welcome to something a little bit different this time. A retro review of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, an old first-person shooter published by Activision, originally released on November 19th of 2001 for Microsoft Windows. Later on it also came out on PlayStation 2, Xbox, Linux and Mac. Oh yes indeed, those were still the times when publishers considered the Mac a viable gaming platform. Haha! So you know this game is old. In any case, the game served as both a remake and a reboot to the old Wolfenstein game. You know, Wolfenstein 3D, the so-called granddaddy of first-person shooter. The game itself was developed by Grey Matter Interactive, while Nerve Software developed its multiplayer mode. id Software, original creators of Wolfenstein 3D, oversaw development and are credited as executive producers. Unsurprisingly, for a game based on the Quake 3 engine, the multiplayer eventually became the most popular part of the game and was ultimately considered influential for the genre. But this is not something we'll be touching upon in this review, since I've only played it single player, for many reasons, which we're not gonna be going. So, enough about that, onto the game itself. The game begins with a interesting CG movie, which could have come out of a very different game, indeed. We watch a devastated battlefield and a wizard walking among it. The wizard eventually comes up against an edgelord Death Knight and manages to defeat him. But, as we all know, the power of metal is not easily contained, so he only can imprison him. Supposedly for all eternity. But what we all know, this is not gonna end up well, now, will it? Flashing forward to World War II, we're greeted with in-game graphics this time, showing us a secret service talking about their Third Reich's escapades in Castle Wolfenstein and two agents who were sent there to investigate. One of whom is us, Agent B.J. Blazkowicz. Well, seems like we're imprisoned, much like the first game. And this is the backdrop of our first chapter, we could say, of missions. Escape from Castle Wolfenstein. Right off the bat, the first thing you notice about the game is its decent graphics. Back then, the graphics would have been really impressive. Even today, they look good. If you have an NVIDIA video card, you can activate a special option in the graphics menu called NVIDIA Fog, which makes particularly good misting and fog effects. Regardless, the texture work is good, the lighting is very good, and the architecture and general level design is very well done. Very well done indeed. So, graphics are really good, but, and this is something that's gonna become a trend in this review, a lot of buts. And not the good kind, Nazi dominatrix style buts you'll meet in the game, no. These are the bad kind of buts, with one T. That's because the game is based on the Quake 3 engine, which is both a blessing and a curse. You'll see what I mean right away. What I mean by this is that the game gives off this distinct feeling that it's nothing more than a total conversion or a mod for Quake 3 itself. I find this quite common among Quake 3 based games, like American McGee's Alice. You can't escape this niggling feeling that this game is not what it could be. So, let's take this tangent back to where it began, graphics. Even though the lighting is great, the architecture is great, texture work is great, the effects are great, the animation of the enemies leaves a lot to be desired. What do I mean? They look fine at first glance. They have impressive polygonal models, they talk, they shout, they feel alive until you start shooting them. And when you start shooting them, you notice that they behave a lot like bots from Quake 3. They don't react to where you shoot them. It just feels like you're depleting an invisible health bar, and when you do, they keel over and die. In various preset animations, of course. Now, this might seem pedantic, but consider the fact that we had another popular, at that time, first-person shooter set in the backdrop of World War II, Medal of Honor, the first one on the PlayStation, which had the enemies reacting to different parts of the body when you shot them there. When you see games with such accomplished and really impressive graphics as this, and the animation is so subpar, it really makes you think, wow, they could have done a better job at this. But then again, maybe they're what they were going for was something more like Doom or Quake, fast-paced, action-packed first-person shooter, and if that's the case, well, they accomplished it. But you see, the main difference between this and games like Quake and Doom is that in Doom and Quake you have your hit-scanning enemies, but those cause minimal damage. Serious damage comes in the form of projectile shot by enemies, like an Im's fireball or an ogre's grenade in Quake 1. In this game, we have a situation like the first Wolfenstein 3D, because this game is full of hit-scanning enemies who can hit you with unerring accuracy from any distance using any weapon, even the most inaccurate ones. And it's really aggravating a lot of the time. And this is just about the human enemies in the game. Later on you'll encounter more exotic foes, like the undead, who are complete bullet sponges. And you rarely have any space to move around and avoid them. They keep charging at you, and they have huge health pools. You don't seem to damage them enough to take them down quickly. And then later on you encounter even more exotic amalgamations of mechanical and genetic engineering, which are... god damn it. In any case, the game itself feels very good because it feels very old school, and it's very satisfying. This is because the game has a lot of old school mechanics, like non-regenerating health. If you want to restore your health, you'll have to find some health packs, which are scattered around in the large levels of the game. Also, you can carry all the weapons you have found in the game on your person at all times. No two-weapon bullshit in this one. And the weapons themselves are really satisfying. They're well designed, they sound meaty, they have the appropriate effect on the enemies, which is devastation and death in untold amounts. But there's a problem with the weapon balancing in the game. At least it felt like this while I was playing the single player. Every new weapon you find instantly replaces any weapon you had prior, in both firepower and usefulness, in almost all situations. There's rarely a point in the game where you think that you're better off using an older weapon you had. If you have ammunition for a newer weapon, you're going to be using that. The game itself now is separated into a handful of acts, each with its own distinct theme and setting, and it's separated into smaller levels. I say smaller, but this should be in quotation marks, because the levels themselves are quite large and expansive, and really impressive from a design standpoint, especially considering the limitations of technology back then. You have quite open spaces, you have a lot of things that are really quite impressive level design-wise. There's also a lot of opportunities for you to outflank your opponents, to outsmart them, to utilize cover and such. It's really well designed. Levels are both numerous and well designed. Top marks here. Sometimes you'll have to avoid enemies. Sometimes you'll have to be stealthy, because then the alarm will ring and those hit-scanning enemies will be the bane of you. The level design is so good, in fact, that you barely notice that the game itself and the levels themselves, each and every one of them, are quite linear in nature. And that's because they're designed in such a way, with those open spaces or the various ways you can often approach situations, the fact that you have to be stealthy a lot of the times to avoid detection. They feel more alive, more organic than most modern FPS game stages. You're not funneled down a corridor. You have the relative freedom, or the illusion of it, to explore yourself, to find things, and of course find the secrets which are a lost art these days. And there's secrets in the old Wolfenstein 3D style, which you have to find secret walls or secret doors and hatches, and behind them you'll find treasure, like golden chalices, or crowns, or gold bars and such. This is a really nice rather nice nod to the old game. I enjoyed these. Like I said before, top marks for level design. Excellent work. But then again, there come the stages of the game where you're up against the undead, as I said before. In those stages, oh man, they're annoying, but not because of the level design, but because of the enemies themselves. they're really aggravating. And they sap you of the will to play sometimes. Couldn't have they done them a little less annoying? What the hell? What the hell were you thinking, guys? It's not fun fighting those undead guys. I didn't really find a way to dispose of them effectively. Each one of them takes about an entire magazine to just destroy, and sometimes they'll even get up. What the fuck? Sound is top-notch, as you'd expect. Since sound is the one thing that rarely ages badly. Music is good, it's quite fitting for the setting. Voice acting is really strong, and I really enjoyed the in-game banter between characters during the cutscenes and during the in-game, the shouts they make. It's really well made. I liked it. Sound design, I don't think I have anything bad to say. Explosions go bang. They're loud, they're satisfying. Same goes with weapons, as I said before. Ambient sounds are doing their job, actually. And everything in between. Your footsteps, your character's grunts, everything. Top notch. In closing, I know that this is quite a meandering review, but that's because the game itself left me with conflicting feelings. On the one hand, I cannot say I did not enjoy the game. I really enjoyed it. I never wanted once to stop playing it. Well, not completely. I almost came to that point while playing those undead missions. But generally, the game is really good. Really good. You can almost say that it's a classic. Certainly it's a classic if you ask those who enjoyed the multiplayer, but as far as the single-player campaign is concerned, it could have been so much better if they had paid more attention. You see, that's a problem with this game. The little details. For every little thing that the game does great, there's this little thing. Those little things which start niggling and then become annoying as time goes on. Which is a shame, because as time goes on, the game gets really good, and it gets better as the more you progress into the game, the more creative scenarios you encounter, the more hot bitches you encounter. I mean, really, those hot German babes with black fitting latex. Oh man. But then you come across a boss, and those are more annoying than Dawn of War 2's bosses. Seriously, what were you thinking? So, final verdict. If you want to play a good, old-style first-person shooter, and not like those indie, old-style shooters, you want to play an actual good old shooter, play this. Buy it. Especially if you enjoy the World War II theme. It has everything you could ask for. It's really good, it's almost excellent, and despite the review being full of pros and for each pro there was a con, I'd say that the final package is a buy out of 10. Anyway, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time. Till then, take care.